Bloomberg's Mark Gurman gives us the context, because before we go as to how realistic this could be, Mark, I want to understand for our audience just how much we've seen production shift to India to satisfy the US market.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. These are truly, some harsh comments coming from President Trump. Obviously, Tim Cook has had no choice because of the threat of tariffs to move a lot of production of the iPhone and other devices to elsewhere, right? So for the most part, they were building things in China, but now they're building probably a third of iPhones in India. They said on the earnings call that the majority of iPhone production for the US market in this coming quarter is going to be done in India. They certainly have aggressive plans to expand even further in India for iPhone production. Again, that's for the US market. And this is about avoiding trade war type of situations between the US and China, geopolitical issues having to do with China, but also because of these tariffs. A lot of this came into place because of the anticipation of these tariffs and how much more it would cost Apple to produce iPhones and how much that would snip into their margins if they continued to export from China to the US. So definitely something Apple had to do. And it's understandable that with Donald Trump's agenda, why he would not be so happy about it.
Mark, I want to recap some of the data you just shared, which is that basically almost 90% of iPhones are currently made in China, and the balance of iPhones are made in India, around 30 million units per annum. Did we learn anything from Apple's most recent earnings or in any of your reporting since on how Apple is planning for the long term on its production of the iPhone, irrespective of what the White House says?
Well, right now, the plan is to produce the vast majority of iPhones in India for the US market by the end of 2026, so about a year and a half from now. There's still going to be a nice chunk of iPhones made in China. That is the higher end Pro models. They're working on basically two new iPhone models for the 20th anniversary. Obviously, Steve Jobs unveiled the first iPhone at the beginning of 2007. So across the end of 2026 and the end of 2027, they have two major new iPhones coming out. They have a foldable iPhone, which would compete with the Samsung Fold, the Google Pixel phone, some of the other, Chinese-made foldables. They also have a 20th anniversary glass wing phone coming out at the end of 2027. Uses very advanced curved glass, very advanced new chips, very advanced new technology. They're not going to be able to pull that off outside of China, so those aren't coming to India from the get-go. But to I guess the larger point, there is no plan in place to begin building iPhones in the United States. I have an article that I wrote in early April, which outlines why this wouldn't happen: the engineering talent, the manufacturing skill sets, the manufacturing space, the cost implications. All of that essentially makes it impossible for Apple to produce iPhones in the US at any rational, reasonable rate or scale.